Wait for it, and go ahead.
Hi, this is Mersman. This week, Tyler's friend Jacob is here to talk about ghosts. He is an amateur ghost hunter who goes to haunted buildings with cool recording equipment to see if he can hear ghosts. He also collects other people's ghost stories and posts them on his own nerd page. If you scare easily, like Tyler and my dad, you may want to turn on your lights and get your blankie. Welcome back to Mers Nerds.
All right, welcome back to Mers Nerds. I have been very excited about this episode. Dan, I know that you've been excited about it too when we were talking about the pre-show prep that we were doing. Jacob James, thank you for coming in and joining us on Mers Nerds.
Welcome, Jacob.
My pleasure. Thank you both.
And you're a bit of a nerd yourself, right?
Quite, yes, for quite a while now. But my kind of specialty, and I think the reason you've asked me to come on the show is to talk about what my nerd major is, and that's being the paranormal nerd.
Before we get into that, I just have to ask you one quick question, Jacob. What do you like on your pizza?
Extra cheese, pepperoni, and extra sauce, depending on where it's from.
Oh,
Okay.
damn, that's a great answer.
That's a solid like pizza right there.
I'm just a simple man making my way through the galaxy. What do you guys like on your pizzas?
You know what? I'm going with yours.
No.
Yeah,
Really?
man. Yeah, extra cheese and meat.
Tyler has a very simple palate from what I've gathered over the years.
You know,
And,
Tyler and I haven't worked together yet, but like we there's a kinship. I have a feeling that as we get to know each other more, we're gonna go, holy geez, we're very, very similar.
Yeah.
I might throw some extra pepperoni on there, but I'm also a sucker for olives and onions on pizza. I love olives so much. They're just one of my favorite things ever. So
You're alone on that one, my friend.
I usually find myself on that island by myself, but that's okay.
We're trying to find out what all our nerds like on their pizza. So
Cool.
I didn't know this about you until you would approach me, Jacob, to make a submission for the Theatre Curation Project for the Mentor series.
Yes. There's the Mentor Story series, and there's the Haunted Theater Story series, which our own chief nerd Tyler Murray did the pilot debut episode of, telling a fantastic, crazy ghost story of his experience at the Royal Alexandra Theater, being alone prepping for an audition.
Well, Dan, you binge watched all the episodes, didn't you?
I did, because I really got into it. So
Because I will say, like, there are a couple elephants in the room when talking about this kind of stuff. There's a couple elephants in the room that you want to address.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's like maybe the first elephant that we wanted to broach is us being nerds and enjoying movies and TV shows and all that kind of stuff is Ghostbusters.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe in a way, for someone who tracks paranormal, there's always maybe like a Ghostbusters stigma sort of following you around in a way, potentially. At least that's I was like, oh man, like I want to talk about this because there's something about Ghostbusters, specifically Dan Aykroyd, and how he got the idea for Ghostbusters. Maybe you're aware that like his grandfather was a ghost hunter himself and invented equipment.
Oh yeah. Oh yes, I am.
Nice.
And you know that and good on you for bringing that up. I actually know him because we're both from Kingston, and he's a townie just like me, and the last time I bumped into him actually was, believe it or not, there's this Hortons in Kingston on Macdonnell, which I and my friends always called the townie Hortons, because everyone talks like this when you have a large triple, and and I was walking in. It was I was about to drive to Penetanguishene with my mother and my son. He was like 2, to do a Drayton show, and And I was like, okay, I'm gonna get a coffee for the road, And so we pulled into the Hortons, and I went up and right on the, I get in line, and this guy's in front of me. And turns out he's like, it's gonna be a big order, and it was Aykroyd, and I was like, oh hey, I was like, it's Jacob James, and maybe for another time I'll tell you how it all happened. But he was like, oh my God, how are you doing? And his bodyguard dude kind of got the nod.
Well, sorry. So there's a connection there already. This
What,
isn't you just meeting him for the first time.
No. Sorry, I didn't mean to skim over that. Yeah, like I met him a long ago when I was like 19.
Okay.
We've known each other for a little while. Very peripherally. Like we're not like hanging out at the cottage or anything. But
Just at the Tim Hortons.
well, this is it. Anyway, but I bring him out, and he sees my son, and my son goes, he's like, who are you? And he goes, I'm Dan Aykroyd. And then I was like, buddy, I was like, this is one of the Ghostbusters. And he goes, no joke, he goes, are you a real Ghostbuster? And Aykroyd looks at me and goes, I'm as real as it gets.
Yeah.
And I was just
It's
like,
Ray.
I was like, holy crap. And I don't want to take up the whole time on it, but I just let you know that because of my son, frankly, or with my son, I met Rick Moranis in New York when we were there, and this is the craziest one, was Bill Murray. Was what happened was there was a protest for like get the guns out of the schools, and Henry was still in a stroller, but it was I was like, we're doing this, you're gonna probably have to go to school in this country, and so we took a break at Central Park, right at the entrance where Trump Tower is, and where the big
Columbus Circle.
Golden Circle, yeah, and so we sat down and got a big old Central Park pretzel. We're sitting there eating on just this little bench. There's like protest everywhere, just peaceful protest everywhere. And this guy comes and is just looking around, right? And he's got like too close. And you're in New York, and if you've lived there for a while, you develop that kind of. And it's like, so he gave him the look like, what the fuck, man? Like, well, you're too close.
Back off, yeah.
Like, and I looked up and sort of made it out through the sunglasses and the ball cap, and I was like, and he's like, I was like, and he sits down beside me when we had this brief little chat. Anyway, and then I was pretty speechless, and it was like, and then he's like, I got to go find my son, and I was like, okay, and I'm like, Henry, do you know who that was? And he's like, no, who? And he's like, it was Bill Murray. You're gonna edit this, right? This isn't one long show. Okay, good.
I don't know, but I love it. Sorry, it's a story about meeting Bill Murray.
I nerd.
Yeah, like we want to know about Bill Murray. We want to know about me and Rick Moranis and Dan Aykroyd.
Incredible. Like with Rick Moranis, it was like no joke. We're Riverside Park, pushing him along. Cute kid, the guy's normal looking dude's like, hey, cute kid, and I was like, oh, and like genuinely, right in the middle of saying thank you, because he's older and you haven't seen him in movies and stuff, so it takes that moment for it to pixelate, right? And it's like, and all of a sudden, I realized, and I just had nothing came out. I was like, it's my, and he was like, okay, I'll see you later. It's my.
But let's get back on track, if we may.
Yeah.
So go ahead, Dan.
So that was the first elephant in the room.
Yes. There you go. So the first elephant in the room, you've met. Well, I guess Rick Moranis wasn't one of the Ghostbusters, but
he was in it.
He was in it.
He wore the outfit and the proton.
That's true. He was a demon dog, right? That kind of busted him in a way.
I think
right?
He's got his Ghostbusters card by now.
He's got his card. So you've met the Ghostbusters. Like we were saying, Dan Aykroyd's grandfather invented some ghost hunting devices, and he was a part of some sort of medium circle
Society.
Or some sort of society or something, like at that time, I think in the 50s, I believe. Really, though, I'm more interested in the gear that his grandfather made.
It should be noted, as we continue on with this line, that Jacob, you are a ghost hunter. Like, is that, would you say that is the proper terminology to use?
I would say I'm an amateur paranormal investigator.
You've certainly had quite a few experiences.
I've learned kind of the practices or the you know what it is to do that.
I was thinking about, Ghostbusters, the Dan Aykroyd thing, his grandfather.
Mhm.
Ghostbusters have all this gear. I wanted to ask you about some of the gear that maybe you use.
When I was working with Stratford, I used to do this thing called the Michigan residency, where you'd go to Michigan and teach at the universities and so on. We'd always there were no Targets in Canada at the time, and Sarah Topham always wanted to go to Target, so we were at Target one time. You got a good per diem, and I saw one of the recorders, the voice recorders, for like on sale for like some cheap American price at the time. And I was like, hey, you know what? I'm gonna buy that, and I'm in all these old theaters, doing shows or teaching and stuff. Like I might as well see if I can get these EVP things, which are electronic voice phenomena, they call it, from all the I'd seen on all these ghost shows, right? Now I'll say I wish I had the money to afford all the gear. I have to tell you this, that like I was like going headlong into it, right? Like after I started, and it was like I'm loving this because I was getting stuff, and I was like what the hell is this? It's like all of a sudden there'd be voices on there that I didn't hear with my
Oh, wow.
naked ear, and I'm like, what the fuck is that? Can I swear on
Yes, you just don't. You every time you swear, you owe $1 to the pizza jar. So whenever we get to do this again
Oh.
live, then yeah.
Well, that'll put things in perspective.
Once you monitor.
You're getting all these voices. Anyway, so I was really into it. I'm the first person to say that these voices, there's no proof that is the spirit of a dead person speaking, but it certainly is proof of something that I didn't hear with my naked ear. Do you know what I mean? And we know for a fact there are frequencies that we can't hear, and there's spectrum of light that we can't see with our senses, right? That these machines can perceive and put into a form where we can then hear or see them. Do you know what I mean? And so
Yeah.
like that's what I'm really fascinated about, is like if there is something that can see and hear me, but I can't see and hear it. Do you know what I mean? Again, it doesn't say that's a ghost, that's the spirit of a dead person, but still, like, what is that? Again, theoretically, the idea is that ghosts are manifesting on an electromagnetic level. Do you know, or that's some element or factor to how what they give off when they manifest. Again, like, I mean, I'm not a professor of it. I'm fascinated by it.
That's amazing. So how about a thermal monocular?
It's the idea that you're scanning with a thermal imaging camera through a place, or you have it as a static camera that you've left in a certain spot where they say the lady walks at night at 3 a.m. all the time, and you've left it there all night. Well, you're using other cameras doing other stuff in the place.
Imagine I'm sure you've watched this, but like I couldn't imagine watching that video back the next day and like seeing something go through, and it would just be like the hairs are already raising on the back of my neck.
It's funny. The second you said that, a light went off behind you, Dan.
These are the kind of videos that you see on YouTube, right? So it's like there's gonna be who knows, like maybe in some background they'll be like, did you see it? And they'll go back and they'll be like highlight right behind Dan's shoulder and be like a shadow.
Why would you do this to me right now? I'm in a dark basement, guys. Okay, so
the thermal imaging is going to be like you're going through and there's no heat signatures. It'd be like if you were hunting in the forest, I guess.
Okay.
Sure. It's like all of a sudden you see a heat signature come up. It's a deer or something. In the same sense, like it's either an intruder in the building or wherever you are, or someone you didn't know was there, or often you see lots of things like where you see actual shape of a torso or of a figure in a heat signature, or like you're panning over and the seat and slight back of a chair is giving off a heat signature.
In your investigations, have you witnessed any of that?
That's something that I aspire to. Like I actually had just bought a new piece of equipment, but I've got it here. But I'm gonna wait until hopefully you list it, and I'll show it to you.
Have you ever used a binary response device?
the name of the popular tool is an ovilus, or this basically it's the idea behind this mechanism is that it's got some digital word bank, like vocabulary bank in it, almost like a speak and spell when we were kids, for the nerds. It's like, but
The ones that I saw, there was like a yes or no light.
oh, so okay. So I'm talking about the much more advanced
Those
version.
they have more advanced
Yeah,
ones. Okay, okay,
yeah. Like
okay.
I mean, they've got these things called they'll call them paranormal pucks, right? Like where it's this little circle thing where there's these two lights and there's an antenna and that's just basically like almost a bit of a motion detector in a way where it's like if anything comes in proximity of the antenna, it's gonna set the lights off and maybe make a beeping sound or a buzzing sound or something. So then the idea is it's sitting in the doorway where you always feel someone is standing at, and nothing's happening, and you're over in the other room, and all of a sudden it's like but there's nobody there, and you hopefully have a static camera, night vision camera trained on that spot, because if you're trying to present the paranormal evidence, then it's like it's one thing for you and your buddy to be in the other room when the thing goes but if you don't have footage of nothing being there
It
and
means
the machine
nothing.
going I'm a skeptical believer. I believe in it. I believe in a lot of things, but I would go about debunking every possible rational explanation before I was like, that's unexplainable.
So, we talk about this equipment and the cool things, the experiences, meeting people like that. But what got you into it? What made you go, I'm going to spend the night at a theater or a haunted place and see what I can record?
I'm so curious about what happens after we pass away, and I would love to be able to communicate with my grandpa again if there were some way to, these are not the sole reasons I'm like, and I'm not obsessively like doing it because of that, or nor am I doing it obsessively. Okay, so I was doing the Russian play and essay by Hannah Moscovich. It was at the Thousand Islands Playhouse, which is close to Kingston, and my grandpa was clearly coming towards his end, and he was like my best friend, like the best person I've ever known. And so it came to it that it was the actual moment where I was holding one hand, Mom was holding the other, and he wasn't really speaking at that point. And he had the same eyes, where I got the Irish blue eyes, right? Like he had just the kindest. I'm not trying to be vain, but you know what I'm saying, that he had really, really great eyes, and he looked up and he looked over at me, and I could feel like, or what I interpreted it to be was is it okay if I go now, kind of, and then he looked over at Mom, and she's like, it's okay to go to sleep, Dad, and then I swear he looked forward, and then he looked like surprised, and then there were 3 ins and outs of breath, and then no breath. Suddenly, energetically, there were 3 people. There was like a triangle of energy, right? And now it was just 2 people. It was the strangest sensation, right? And it's like, and I did that thing. I didn't even think, but I did the thing of like closing his eyes. And it's the Thousand Islands Playhouse. I mean, there were no understudies, right? So I called and told them what was going on, and they're like, "Do you want to call the show? Do you want to?" And I was like, "No, I'd like to go do the show," And it wasn't till I was like, got the standby backstage where it hit me that I'm standing there, because we did Russian play first, and if you know it, it's a 3-hander, and the younger male part that I was playing is a gravedigger, right? And it was like, and it's like, and they and like it was Monica, who I did the Billy Bishop investigation at the Playhouse with years later, hands me the shovel or spade, and then I just like lost it. Like I'd held it together, right? And just as the lights are going down, I just fucking like broke down, right? And I just entered and just started the show like in that. I could. It was just bizarre.
If I can just interject for a second, I mean, like, one of the things that we define as being a nerd in this podcast or within Mers Nerds is that, we all seem to have something in our lives that we love so deeply that it kind of inhabits a good majority of like your brain space and almost like your everyday. And it kind of sounds to me like this is probably it for you, right? Like this is, like you said, like this is your nerd major. Would you agree?
I'm so nerdy, dude. There's so many other things, but this is a big one, and I can leak the news here. Like, I mean, there's been some talk over at the Theatre Curation Project, some planning about potentially, in addition to the Haunted Theater Story series, which is, people telling their haunted theater story in a kind of a self-tape interview style, actually going and doing some investigations of some of the theaters. I mean, we just had an episode with Ron Ulrich, who is the artistic director of Theatre Aquarius, which has a ton of stories.
Dan, you were saying that was your favorite episode.
That was my favorite episode.
He looked me in the eye, me who did the first episode. He looked me in the eye and said that was his favorite.
I did. And I was like, my foot's in the room somewhere. I just got to put it in my mouth right now.
Just swallow it. You'll find it.
Yeah.
Ron's silky charm will, win you every time.
Well, it was a phenomenal story.
It's a great story.
I love how he posted as like it's what did he say? It's like it's a
love story,
but it's also a love story.
Yeah.
Well, because, I mean, not just, can I talk about that episode? I don't want to spoil it for anybody else. Can I say spoilers?
I'll post here. Look at this. There's a link to it.
Ah, there you go.
Subscribe.
Yep. There you go. Hit that like button.
Yeah.
No, or as my kid always says, smash that like button, like YouTube kids.
Smash that like button. Yeah.
Smash that like button. So the thing...
Or ghosts will haunt you.
Or ghosts will haunt you.
Yeah, there will be consequences.
So the thing I love the most about that one in particular is as Ron's telling the story, I think it was the manager of the theater.
No, the original artistic director.
And his name was Paul, I think. Peter, sorry. Peter, artistic director. Thank you. I just love the idea that as he passes, his spirit goes right to the theater to the way that I saw it, it's like, I'm going to now take care of the theater for the rest of eternity. Kind of. Well,
the way Ron described how passionate Peter was to graduate Theatre Aquarius from a place that was, renting places to do their theater into having its own kind of, house, right? And so so I would be very eager to get into old Theatre Aquarius and try to communicate with Peter. And see, that's what makes it such an ideal place too for an investigation, especially within the umbrella of a haunted theater series, is because we know the history, right? We know there's potential. So if you're using some of your equipment and you're asking for names and you get Peter, do you know what I mean? It's like, I mean, this is the thing. Like when you take the step further with EVP, which is, I would say, probably like has been my main mode of investigation. Do you know what I mean? It has been the audio, the EVP.
Well, here's another link to your story in A Thousand Islands Playhouse, and you can listen to some of the audio that you recorded.
Yeah, dude, that was freaky stuff, man.
That's just the EVPs, like just
if you're what is it? It's like a minute and a half, right, of your footage.
It's very short.
Pause, listen to it, and then come back because that was
EVPs captured at the Thousand Islands Playhouse.
The you know what about that one though, and it's because you talk about the idea of maybe going to Aquarius and maybe having an experience with Peter. You know that is a friendly ghost, if you will.
Well, that's a night. Yeah, that's always a relief, because
there was especially if you're a woman, the ghost at the fire hall at Thousand Islands was
that
aggressive.
was curious. Well, yeah. I think you and I had spoken a little more about it, like but you glean.
I've worked at the Thousand Islands Playhouse twice. I had no idea there was any sort of.
Were you in the Springer or the fire hall?
I was in the Springer.
There's something about the fire hall. That's where those were recorded. That
right.
was it.
And that was it was previously a prison, wasn't it?
Well, it was a fire hall slash kind of police station, right,
Right.
of the small town again in Aquay, and so there's actually cells, and the ones you hear, I was telling, see that's the thing. I think I may kind of put out I've got some other EVPs from different theaters, and I'm gonna probably give just the raw, like blasts of them like that, but then I'll probably put together a little EVP collection from you know
Greatest hits.
where I can give it some context because the thing is it's one thing to just hear them, but it's but there's cells there, right? And the one EVP where you hear a man's voice go bullet, and then you hear this kind of weird it's like when that was done, I had my arm inside one of the cells, and I had just asked, "What did you do to get in the cell?" or "Why are you in the cell?" or something, and the response was, and then and what's even more curious is that Monica, I had her with her own recording device as well, and she was like on the other side of the hall, like it's still in front of me, but just a bit of a ways off. And so I was like, send me that chunk of time-coded file right at this point and this point. She sent it to me, and I discovered, and this was it felt like a breakthrough for me. It kind of was. It's like, because it was on both of our recorders. However, it was louder on my recording and it was softer on hers. So the inference is that whatever the source of the sound was, I was closer to it. Do you know what I mean? Which would
Yeah.
mean it was inside the cell.
You
right?
stuck the arm in, right? Yeah.
That kind of going about the most recent episode where Ms. Deacon is talking about Monica Deacon was talking about the in the wardrobe room, or Bonnie, sorry,
Bonnie.
yeah, sorry,
Bonnie Deacon.
but the one that
there.
whispered Bonnie, and the girl
She
beside
got
her went,
that, right
"What was
in her
that?"
ear.
Yeah, but the fact that student heard it.
Well, that's the thing. Yes, exactly. The fact that that's finally someone else had heard it as well.
Here's
But
the
what I
link to
was
that
just
one.
going to quickly say about EVPs, is that like it's one thing to get the some anomalous voice or something, do you know? But to take it the step further is to ask it kind of control questions, like to say, do you know, besides like what's if you say what's your name and you get a name, that's great, you know. But if you say what color hat am I wearing right now, and you get the response blue, and you're wearing a blue hat, do you know what I mean? It's like it's trying
That's interaction.
to determine if this spirit, if this source of this voice is intelligent in the sense of it can see and hear me. And then there's the layer of like, just like there's nice people and kind helpful people on earth and in the earth plane, it's like there's assholes too, so likely you could be asking questions and you could have some asshole ghost that's fucking lying to you.
Right.
I don't know. Still, it's pretty fascinating.
When my experience, my story at the Alex, I saw someone who was there and then they weren't there. But there are other stories, and I didn't share these with you, but there's a dressing room 10. It's an infamous dressing room where there's, the wardrobe rack where you have all your costumes, and frequently people will say that the wardrobe rack gets ripped off the wall. And other stuff has happened in this dressing room. It happened during our 2 years run of Dirty Dancing. I was there for 18 months, and we came in one day, and sure enough, the wardrobe rack in that particular dressing room, there's 3 gentlemen in that dressing room, and there was a lot of clothes on the rack, to be fair, but it was clear and violently ripped down, clearly, because there was holes in it. Another gentleman in that room was sitting on a 2-show day eating lunch, and in most dressing rooms, for people who aren't familiar, there's like almost a desk area, and the mirrors right in front of you with all the lights. And he was sitting and just eating his lunch and looking in the mirror. And one of his dressing room mates we were there for 2 years, so he had really moved in. You talk about, for this podcast, he brought some knickknacks and some nerd stuff. This guy brought books. He had knickknacks all over the place. And on a window, there was like a windowsill or an air conditioning unit or something, like a shelf of some sort that he could place these books and a couple little statuettes. And the one guy was eating his sandwich and looking in the mirror, and he could see the reflection. They just one by one started flying off.
Oh man.
Yeah, and Victor Young, who I'd given my my mentor story about, had also been in that room. I think during the run of Crazy for You when it was at the Alex, and he said he was sitting in that exact same spot, and he was getting ready for the show, and he was looking in the mirror, and a woman had come in to stand in the dressing room. It's not infrequent that, or not uncommon, sorry, that when you're getting ready for the show, people go and they have a chat. And Victor turned to say, "Hey, what's going on?" And no one was there. But he went into the hallway and looked around, and no one was there. So,
how am I going to leave my basement? You guys can't get off this call. I'm sorry.
Just really quickly run upstairs. But I mean, if you were to go do these investigations, and I mean, because the other elephant in the room that I wanted to address is one that you've already addressed, is the skepticism, and dealing with the skepticism. I mean, I'm a skeptic, and I had a full-on experience where I saw a full-grown human being disappear in front of me like that, and I saw it. It happened, and I still go, did I? But I did.
Yeah.
And you said yourself that you've gone down the rabbit hole of these YouTube videos, and we've all seen the ones that are so clearly bullshit.
Yeah.
Do you have it in you, especially as a performer? There's the element of presentation. You want the presentation to be good, but is there something in you to be like, no, I want to do it different. I want some definitive proof. I want to go out there and show proof of, like, and you've got all these examples of, like, the theater in Lindsay. I've worked there.
Oh.
What's it called?
The Academy Theater.
The Academy in Lindsay, yeah.
Yeah.
Where, I mean, that place, I mean, my first day of rehearsal, I walked in and I got chills at that place. There's the place to go.
Like, I'm getting that first post I did in the Facebook group of the Theatre Curation Project Facebook group. It made me just go, holy crap. Like, I mean, it's like, not only are there tons of people who are really excited and passionate about this stuff, but here's a list of haunted theaters to go investigate.
Yeah. Within 3-hour radius.
I know, it's crazy.
To start off with.
I'm in Stratford right now. This is my thinking, is like, the theaters are, no one's in there, like, I mean, I'm bubbled up with at least one prominent Canadian actress, do you know what I mean, who might be a fun co-host to have, like, or to, because she probably just scream her head off the whole time, and in terms of presentation, that would be interesting. But it's like,
I think I would cry.
Well, you're going to come along too as soon as we're all allowed to do it.
Well, that would be great TV. Just a grown man sitting there crying.
I would 100% go along with this. I would totally go along with it. I'll bring the pizza. Well, whatever.
Yeah. Well, this, like that's the thing, yeah, no, it's just to answer your question in terms of presentation versus, like, scientific documentation, right? Like, that's it. No, I'm in it for the EVPs, and I'm in it for the footage that we happen to capture of a door slamming shut or something.
You're not in it to prove anything.
No, I'm in it to explore and perhaps make little breakthroughs, like I felt like I did with the EVP with Monica holding one in the distance thing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And share it with people who want it, who are interested in it too. I think it's foolish for us to believe in a way that, if I can't see it or hear it, it doesn't exist, because we already know that's not true.
Yeah.
So with these devices, like, if it's a night vision camera that sees in infrared or ultra full spectrum light, captures something that you don't see with your naked eye, or a sensitive enough microphone records a frequency that you don't hear with your naked ear, but then you see it or listen to it after. Like, I can't tell you that is the spirit of someone who died. I can't say that. I can say that's something. It's something that we aren't perceiving with our senses. Right. So, and then the question of, like, can it see and hear me? And if it can, then, like, what is the relationship? What's the purpose? Like, what is happening here? Do you know? Do you know that? That's what fascinates me.
Yeah. The equipment I use is I have 2 cats.
Yes.
You know, because you get that feeling, Dan. Maybe you're feeling it right now, alone in your basement.
I wish I had cats. At the very least, I wish I had some cats.
Right, but you know that feeling when you're just kind of like, I'm gonna go up the stairs now, and I'm gonna go really fast. I always like, if I get that feeling, I look to the cats, and the cats go, then I get the hell out of there. Thankfully, they've never done that yet. But
as far as I understand, there's kind of these 3 sort of degrees of hauntings, right? There's intelligent hauntings, right, which is something that is communicating or can see and hear you, that we've talked about, there's residual hauntings, which is the lady walks from this room to this room at 3 a.m. Every third Friday of the month or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, playing on loop. And then there's things that are kind of in the darker realm that they said was sort of like poltergeist or something like that, which is one for any ghost enthusiasts that are listening right now that are thinking, hey, listening to this guy, I'm going to go out and do it. One word of warning I would give is that a couple words of warning is that, first of all, when you open yourself up to ask these questions and get responses, you could get anything. Like, you got to be prepared that you might get stuff that is not pleasant to listen to or comfortable. But also, like, for me, it's a rule. Like, for one, never ever use a Ouija board. Those things are really bad. They're not going to do you any good. And
why is that? Like,
that's a whole other conversation, but it's like the theory being it's more on a kind of a demonic kind of level, a more malevolent kind of manipulative.
You and I had talked about that when I first discovered that you were into this. Remember, I'd said to you, like, I would never touch a Ouija board, and you
and good. So there's like, don't touch the Ouija board, but what was the other thing I was gonna say was the poltergeist stuff. It, like, if I ever see cupboards opening and slamming shut or things flying off, you know what I mean?
Books coming off a shelf,
like that is a signal to me, like, don't engage.
Right.
Like, I'm the more you engage with this, the worse off you'll be.
I think it was famously put in a film once. It was, get out.
You got the part, kid.
Right. Thanks again, Ron.
But yeah, like, so those would be my a couple things, because I'll tell you, like, I had one EVP capture one night that, when I was very green, very new at it. I just moved to New York the first time with my ex and the roommate, who were skeptical. This was way back in 2010, right? And so they both were out of town, and it was the first time I was alone in the apartment. And I had this from all these Michigan teaching trips, and I was like, well, hey, I'll do the apartment. That's cool. And so I started, doing some stuff, and this is when I learned the hard lesson: don't do it where you live, because that you have to sleep there, and you don't know what you might get, and it's like it will leave you on a chilling kind of a slightly chilling one. So I wish I had a better recording of it. It was like, this is from I was so new at it, and I just didn't even know how to put it through a computer and process it properly. I've got a recording, but it's not decent enough to show publicly. Do you know what I mean? But I'll tell you what it said. There was an exchange, and it's one of the very few times I've caught a dialogue between two voices. If I'd heard this, I would have been like, what the fuck, so it was basically, if I can remember, it was this exchange where there were two voices. One was very kindly and good, and the other was the voice you just never ever want to capture. You know what I mean? And I'm a voice actor, so I'll try to simulate it. So, it starts off with this kindly guy going like this. He goes, "Enough, enough," and then you hear the other voice go, "Then get away," and then you hear this go, "Then be off with you." and then you hear this weird sound. I can't even describe it, like somewhere like a chime and a bell and wind. And then you long pause, and then you hear, okay, hi. And that was it. And I was
Dan,
like,
how you doing?
I'd heard this, right? And I'm sitting there alone for the first time in this apartment in New York, like no girlfriend, no roommate. And I was like, I'm never fucking doing this again. It's like, that's like, please God, if you get me out of this, I'll never do any again.
Oh,
Also,
man.
I'm moving.
Couldn't afford it. That was
That's New York.
but yeah, no, that was a creepy one. So that's all to say. It's fun and it's fascinating, but it's like, honestly, you never know. Like, you never know, and you got to be careful that, like, even if you're getting the spidey sense that this, is like not just spooky, but like bad. Exercise
Follow your gut.
when you
Follow
do it.
your gut, right? And if you're like me, go get your cat and just kind of point it around the room. Just
Oh man,
It could-
that was a great bunch of stories, Jacob.
yeah.
Hey,
Like, that was
a lot of fun to talk about, and you guys, we have a nice rapport. It's nice chatting with you anyway.
Yeah, and whenever the whole thing is over, we say this to everybody. Like, we want to do this again, but in the same room, and we'll pizza's on us.
Totally. And I think I have a ghost story when we do that time. I have my own ghost story. I just got to corroborate it with a friend of mine who was with me at the time. But maybe at that point in time, we'll talk about that one.
I look forward to that.
That sounds great, guys. Well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. Jacob,
Thanks, Jacob.
We hope to see you again. Dan, we'll talk to you soon, and thanks very much, guys. This has been Mers Nerds.
Merch Nerds!
Listener.